everyone, it's Alice, and today we're gonna do a fantasy TBR because I'm in the mood to read fantasy. I'm in the kind of mood where I want to read something magical, but not too dark, something I can just sort of escape into, and maybe something a little weird. This is the struggle with being a mood reader, like the mood that I'm in now. I'm like struggling to figure out what I actually want to read. It's kind of like when you are hungry for something or you like want something but you don't know what, so you just stare into your fridge. That's the kind of mood I'm in now, so I'm hoping that like talking you through these books will make me realize what I actually want to read. And then also, if some of you love some of these books, please tell me about it, so maybe that will make me read them. I've just pulled a mix of different things from my shelf, so we have quite the stack here, so we're gonna go through them. The first three I have are more like magical realism, I think, and they're all actually translated. And I do want to read more translated books this year. It's kind of like a little goal of mine. But then I do have that goal pretty much every year. But yeah, I love reading translated books and I really need to read more of them. The first one I have is The Lantern of Lost Memories by Sanaka Hiiragi. And this one is about this photo studio that's owned by this guy who collects antique cameras. And this studio is actually kind of like a doorway into the afterlife where deceased people can go to get like a recap of their whole life. So they sit down and they get to see their whole life that they've lived. I think we meet several people who go to the studio and we get to see their lives. And I really like these kinds of Japanese translated books. Very often they're set in like bookshops or cafes, and I like the idea of having a photo studio instead and having people like see their whole lives. And it sounds interesting and a little weird and whimsical. I am wondering though if this is also a little sad. I don't know if I'm in the mood for something sad, but yeah. It also sounds just kind of nice. It also looks very nice. The second one I have is The Wizard's Bakery, and this is translated from Korean. And in here we see a bakery that's open 24/7, and at this bakery you can get what you can usually get at a bakery, but behind the scenes there's more going on because the bakery also produces like baked goods and pastries that have immense like magical power. I think our main character is a young boy who has run away from home and he finds refuge in this bakery, and he gets to know the blue-haired shop assistant that is in charge of making these magical baked goods. I have heard that this has like a darker edge to it. I don't know how that shows up in the story, but I'm intrigued. And I just like the idea of reading about a bakery, especially a magical bakery. Probably in part because I just love baked goods so much and I enjoy reading about food. But it sounds very magical. Then we have one that I think is like it only has a hint of magic to it. It's What You Are Looking For Is in the Library. And this is set in Tokyo, and we meet a librarian who can read people's souls, and therefore she knows what books to recommend to them to like help them in their lives. Now, I don't know if that's like an actual magical ability in this book or if it's just like regular librarian recommendation skills, which are usually very, very good, but it feels a little magical to me. I've heard that this is very heartwarming and it's about friendship and it just looks very nice. I'm also wondering if there is a cat in this book. I always get excited when I see cats on covers and I always hope that there is a cat in the book, but sometimes they're just there for no reason. Or the reason is that cats are cute, but yeah. I don't know what I'm gonna find in here, but I mean, a library and books about books are always great. Then I have a couple of historical fiction books that sort of lean into fantasy. So I have The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love by India Holton, which I am really excited to read because I've read a couple of books by this author and I really, really enjoyed them. They were so much fun. So I'm hoping this will be kind of like the same. This has a strong romance element to it, I think, and it follows these rival ornithologists who are hunting for this magical bird in England. And so it sounds kind of like a rivals to lovers situation, which I can be into under the right circumstances. What I really liked about this author's other books was that they were just kind of like over the top and a little ridiculous, but kind of in a fun way. And so I think I'm really gonna enjoy this when I'm in the mood for it. I just don't know if I'm in the mood for it now. The other one I have is The Fairy Bargains of Prospect Hill by Rowenna Miller, and I've had this for a while, so I really need to read it. It's set in the early 1900s, and I think we follow three sisters who live in a house together, and they come from a family where they still like make small bargains and like sacrifices to fae and fairies, so they still believe in them. And then I think one of the sisters ends up marrying a guy who turns out to be really horrible, and they need to like team up with the fae to like save their sister. I don't know if I'm remembering this right, but I think that's what it's about. I think the fae in here are like folklore fae and fairies, which are usually like tricksters and maybe not like super safe to bargain with, but I really love books with fae and fairies in them, so I'm excited to read this because of that. And I do really like stories about sisters as well, so I really gotta get to this one. Then we have a bunch of cozy fantasy books, and the first one is Brigands and Breadknives by Travis Baldree, which is one of the books in the Legends and Lattes series. And so far, I have loved all of the books that I've read in that series. This is set after the events of Legends and Lattes, but it follows a character from the prequel, actually, the bookseller in the prequel. She moves to where the main character in Legends and Lattes lives, so to that city, but I think she ends up like somewhere else after a drunken night, and she has to like find her way back or something. Some of you have told me that the vibe of this book is quite different from the other books, so this is a little less calm and relaxing. I think it seems like there's more going on in it, and it's more like action filled, and I'm actually really glad that you guys told me about that, because then I know to sort of manage my expectations going into this, and I know that it's not going to be totally the same vibe. I am still really excited to read this though, because it sounds a little bit like we're going on an adventure, and I do love a good adventure. Next, we have Shady Hollow by Juneau Black, and I really need to get started with the series because it sounds delightful. It's set in this village called Shady Hollow, where all of these like woodland creatures live together, and it just sounds so sweet. Things do take a turn in here though when a toad turns up dead in the story, and we're following a fox who is a local reporter and like new to town, and she investigates what happened with this toad. But I feel like in this village of animals where there is a cafe run by a moose, it cannot possibly get too like bad and dark. I feel. And a lot of you have told me that this is very cozy and just a nice little read. So I'm very excited to read it. I like the idea of this little village. I'm really excited to see it and see what all of the different characters are, and yeah, it sounds very cozy, but I like that there is also like a mystery element in here. We also have Dreadful, which sounds like it's more on the humorous side of things. It follows a character who wakes up in an evil wizard's workshop, which has been half destroyed, and he doesn't remember like anything, like how he got there or who he is, and he also wakes up without his eyebrows, which is quite the situation. It then turns out that he is actually the evil wizard, and he just can't remember, and he is in this castle, and it's full of goblins, and he has a princess locked up, and he decides to just sort of go with it because he doesn't know who he is or how he became so evil, so he's just going with the flow, I guess, which sounds really funny to me. It also makes me chuckle that he wakes up without his eyebrows. I feel like that choice gives me a good idea of the vibe of this book, and I think that I'm gonna be into it. This next one has a very cozy cover. It's The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong, and this one follows a wandering fortune teller who travels from village to village and only tells small fortunes because she knows that the big ones can have really bad consequences, whatever that means. It's kind of a lonely life though, so I think she ends up sort of finding family on the road, and eventually she is joined by an ex-mercenary, a baker, and a magical cat. I don't know what makes the cat magical. I'm excited to find out, but a cat in any book is always great. Speaking of bakers, we also have A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic by J. Penner. And in this one, we're following a human who lives in a world where there are all of these different magical creatures. But I don't think she has any magic because it says that she runs a bakery, but she has to work twice as hard as everyone else to get the job done. I'm guessing because she doesn't have any magic. And then her friend, who is an orc, decides to enter her baked goods into this competition, and she gets offered a place. And despite her reservations, she decides, okay, she's gonna go and enter this competition. Now, like I mentioned, I love baked goods, so whenever there's that in a book, I'm always intrigued. And this just sounds very nice. It seems like it's about like friendship, and I do think that there is like a romance element in here, and I'm just very excited to see the world and what that's like and all of the different magical creatures. And I really like this cover as well, like all of the different baked goods and everything. It just sounds and looks super magical. To no surprise to anyone, we of course also have a T. Kingfisher book in this stack. We have Paladin's Grace, and anything this author has written I'm willing to try, and this looks really good. I know not everyone likes these covers, but I actually really like them. I think this follows a fugitive and a paladin or an ex-paladin who witness an assassination attempt. And I guess it doesn't work, and the assassin like see them that they've been spotted, and so they have to go on the run to not get murdered themselves or something like that. And there is a little bit of romance in here as well, so I'm guessing maybe they fall in love. I have to say, I do really like this edition. I don't really know why I like it so much because I usually don't like covers like this, but it just looks really intriguing. Oh, I actually haven't seen that there is a cat or some sort of animal. It doesn't really look like a cat, it looks like a raccoon. I don't know, but there's an animal in here. I hope there's a animal side character. I always love those in this author's books, and it's very rare that I read T. Kingfisher and I don't like the book, so I'm hoping I'm gonna love this. And I know that this is the first in a series of 4 books, and I think if I like this one, of course I will read the other ones. And yeah, it says on the back here that it's darkly whimsical and cozy, so I feel like we can't go wrong. Lastly, we have some books with like witches and vampires, which is always fun. The first one is Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen, and this says it's about an enchanted tree and the people who tend to that tree. I'm guessing the people who look after the tree are witches because it says that they've always been outsiders in their little town in North Carolina, and they're sort of like strange people. And I think what happens is that someone who disappeared a long time ago comes back into these characters' lives, and that like stirs things up. This is one of those books that I just have a really good feeling about, and I'm trying not to get like really high expectations, but I just have a feeling that I'm really gonna love it. I'm very excited to see what characters we're following and like their different dynamics. And I'm also intrigued about this tree and like what makes it magical and what it does. Second to last, we have The Spellshop by Sarah Beth Durst. And this one follows a librarian of this magical library with all of these spell books. And I think after a revolution, she has to flee and she heads to an island. I think it's the island that she comes from because it says something about how she never thought she would go back there, but she does, and she settles down, and I think she ends up doing a little bit of like illegal magic. This is a romance book, so there is mention of like a handsome but also nosy neighbor, so I'm wondering if there's something there. And this is one of those books that I'm not entirely sure if this is for me because it does sound like very heavily like it's romance, but it just looks and sounds so magical that I have to try it. And I love books with witches, and I think maybe again, if I'm in the right mood, I might really enjoy it. And I mean, the main character ends up opening, I think, an illegal spell shop, and that sounds amazing. Lastly, we have a book that I got very recently. It's Wildwood Dancing by Juliet Marillier, and this is the one that I think has vampires in it. It's set in Transylvania, and we're following the daughters of this man, and the daughters are living like a very nice and magical life. They can explore the forest that's around the castle, and they can also like go through a portal in the castle to visit the Fae. And that sounds very magical. Then the father gets sick and he has to travel away for his health. And so a cousin comes to like help out at the castle, but I don't think the cousin is that great, so things get a little bit complicated. I don't really know what that means, but I'm excited to read this. I like the idea of following these like magical sisters, and I read a book by this author years and years ago. I cannot remember the name of it, but I really enjoyed it. And I think that I can really get into her writing. I don't know why I didn't read anything else from her after that book, but I'm excited to read something again, and this just sounds perfect for me. There is also a frog companion in here to one of the sisters, and I love a good animal companion. It's like one of my favorite things in books. And one of you also mentioned that I am really gonna like the frog companion, so I'm very excited to meet this frog. That was the last book in my stack though. That was everything I had to show you today. Hopefully soon I'll be able to figure out what kind of book I'm in the mood for. This is always a struggle for me, but if you've read any of these books, I would love to hear what you thought. And actually, if you have any recommendations of books like these, I would also like to hear about it. I know I have a lot of these to read, but I can always add more to my TBR because I can never get enough of like magical books. That was it for today though. As always, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!